We are here with Chef Geoff Kie, who is fresh off of his stage with Chef Crystal Wahpepah from Wahpepah's Kitchen. Why don't you introduce yourself to the people and tell them how you got into the industry and how you got into the stage program?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. My name is Chef Kie. I come from the Pueblo of Laguna. I'm Bighorn Clan, Little Turquoise Clan. I'm from a little village in New Mexico called Siama. I'm really excited to be sharing my story with you here today. I first got my started, in the kitchen in Flagstaff, Arizona, where I was in school. And so that's where I kind of spent like 4 years just really getting into the deep and dirty of like a big kitchen space. That was kind of one of my first really big experiences that I really carried with me to this day. And ever since then, I've kind of been doing like more pop-ups and kind of doing more things that I'm really passionate about. But since then, I've kind of been blending a lot of different things together because I'm also a filmmaker as well. So I also have my master's in communication with a documentary studies emphasis. So, and I also kind of blend these two of like Indigenous food sovereignty, documentary, and food to kind of really blend these things together that kind of like express myself in the way that I feel like is really authentic to me.
With Chef Crystal, what specifically did you go to her kitchen to learn, and what did you take away from that experience?
I'm really thankful to Shamika and the James Beard Legacy Network to send me the application to apply for Chef Crystal at Wahpepah's Kitchen, because I felt like truly that she's one of the premier Indigenous food restaurants in the world, she really encompasses everything that is really tied to her core values of like community and tradition. And so I really got to experience that and really felt that for the time that we spent together in Oakland. And so I knew I was gonna spend a lot of time. I wasn't sure what I was gonna be doing in the kitchen, but I was just like trying to mentally and physically prepare myself. I was like, I live in the desert, in the high altitude, desert. So I was kind of like hiking every day and trying to like really, get myself, I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, but I just really wanted to be prepared to receive all that knowledge because, it's going to be going on to my whole life journey of all that stuff. But mainly Chef Crystal, she really wanted to show the community side of it because it's really intergenerational. Her community connects deep with the intertribal friendship house. That was a really big major part in Indigenous history in America because that's one of the focal points where people could go to after being part of like the relocation process, where Indigenous people could gather in community and share songs. And her father was kind of like in the leadership of that organization. And so we did community feeds. We brought food to the community for free. We also celebrated the 70th anniversary of the Intertribal Friendship House with Chef Crystal, and we made blue corn cakes with like a berry compote on there. So it's just like everything is community oriented. That we knew that that morning we were preparing the cakes and having that moment with Chef Crystal was just like so iconic, just to be in that moment of like this is what that good medicine, that good vibes, that good energy, that love that she puts into that food, and it's given out to the community, and it's received.
I love that you call food medicine. I couldn't agree with you more. It's what we nourish our bodies with. And I also love when the story behind the food has a deeper meaning, and it seems like all these crossroads meet up perfectly with this place and this chef. And I did a little bit of looking at her food before today, and it just looks spectacular, and it tells the entire story, and we can taste that love and that medicine during that meal experience. I don't think anything's more exciting than that. What was the stage experience like for you?
I'm a prep guy. First started, like in my culinary world, I was a prep guy, so I was just like knew what to do. I was ready to get to work. So that's kind of what we started off with, the work of the gradual transition of like going from the prep, learning the basics of a few recipes, but also learning how everything gets stored and put away and gets prepared for the line. And then kind of making that transition into the line, and then also learning the front of the house, but also management as well.
Right.
But we also spent a few days in the community as well, and also just exploring some of the places that were really important to set the context for all the work that they do. So for example, we went to the Cultural Conservancy, which is like the farm that supports Chef Crystal, and they grow like heirloom squash there amongst other heirloom produce and things like that way. We collected the squash, brought it back to the kitchen, and we harvested the seeds. And so those are heirloom seeds that are, generations old and also going to be feeding generations ahead, And so that's why it's so important to like really be conscious of like all the all the great things that come with all the things that we're growing and the produce, to recognize that like the intergenerational aspect of it. So that was really cool to be actively seed saving, and those seeds are going back to the farm. Another great aspect that I thought I had the opportunity to try was the acorn flour. It's a traditional food substance.
I just never put those two things together.
Yeah, right. I finally made that for me, that connection there too. And so she also works with one of the cultural centers there, and so they made like an acorn bite that encompassed like the youth and like, you know, the elders, and kind of rehydrating these connections and talking about food, because they were trying to do also do food exhibits for that cultural center. You know, just recognizing that it's also like on Pomo land and all these other places that are important for the indigenous peoples in the area, but like recognizing that oaks and, you know, the oak trees and the acorns are an important part of that history. And so to taste their Chef Crystal had the crepe on the menu that I got to try, and then we also got to try some of the packaged items that they made using the acorn flour. So that's just an example of how long our food systems go.
I mean, it's wild. I've done a lot of stages. None of them have been involved in seed saving and that part. I'm so inspired by the experience that you had there and by what she was doing at that restaurant. I mean, what did you take away from that experience that you brought back home with you? What are you doing now that you're done with the stage program, and what did you take away from Chef Crystal that you're incorporating into what you're doing now?
First one in that week, I was like, all right, you know, kind of had this mindset of like gonna work on pizzas. You know, pizza's my thing right now. I'm trying to incorporate that into my next endeavors for the year. But now it's like evolved into remutate the land. So giving the land back to like our indigenous matriarchs. To make sure our lands are protected, you know, then we're also growing food for our communities that is healthy and nutritious and culturally reflects us as well, that is a culturally matched food for us. A critical question I ask people too is that I learned from my mentors is that, do you have enough seed to feed your community? And that, you know, is a really critical question in terms of like food sovereignty, not just for indigenous peoples, but for all of us in America too. And I think that's really important right now. But for me, it's also rematriating the land, is giving space for some of my favorite mentors to do their own projects, such as adobe building, really getting to traditional arts, all the things that sustained us as a culture in the Southwest. So there's a really big mix of things I want to do that incorporates rematriating the land, or giving some of the land back to some of our indigenous matriarchs and indigenous peoples that we need to make regenerative economies happen. It's like, this needs to happen now, and it doesn't matter, you know, who you are, or what your politics are, or, you know, we need to help each other. And that regenerative economy is helping build food systems, food economies, helping each other. If you're a small business owner, giving, you know, if you're a farmer, you know, sell direct to the business owner that, you know, makes salves and all the things that we need for all these different products. You know, it's really, that's one of my primary aspects, is to keep going and to make regenerative economies and rematriate the land, because that's what I learned from Chef Crystal out there in Oakland.
I feel like you and I can talk for hours about this. That is so freaking cool what you're doing. How does pizza specifically fit into this? Because like we talked about earlier, pizza is one of my favorite food groups, and I'm just super interested in what you're doing with what you have to work with with pizza. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I love working with pizza. So pizza is pretty much the arm of like how I get to, you know, interact and be in community with my people and my family out there in New Mexico. So what I primarily did and what I did was kind of like my way of kind of accelerating the jump off of Kie's Pies. So I made a bunch of pizzas. I knew I had to like make a mass quantity to know that they're good, or how my process was gonna work. And so I cooked all these pizzas. I was like, all right, I got like 10 pizzas ready to go. And so I went to the ambulance, our first responder station on the reservation, and I gave it to all the first responders, and they're like, are you for real, free pizza? I'm like, yeah, you guys go for it. And so, you know, I know I shared that story with my community, and ever since then, people were like, yeah, you know, I want to support Kie's Pies, you know, let me get like 6 pizzas, or, you know, all these different things, and introducing new flavors, new ingredients to people on my reservation, because it's a 50-mile drive to Albuquerque. It's a 30-mile drive to Grants, so it's almost like a 100-mile round trip if you wanted to go to Albuquerque and come back just to get a good meal, you know, to go out to eat. And so, you know, why kind of waste those resources when you're spending a regenerative economy, keeping that money in the community, in the reservation, but also, you know, helping each other as small businesses. So I think that's a really great primary thing that I'm trying to drive. But pizza is just a a way for me to be actively engaged, and like it's my own little personal passion project that I think is a really cool civic engagement.
Yeah, I think that's so cool that the expression of what you're doing is something as simple as pizza, which you and I both know is not that simple at all. But underneath it is such a rich story and such a really critical and cool mission. I'm just I applaud you for this work. It's really awesome what you're doing. Can you tell me anything about how she operated, things that you took away from the experience that you thought were really special?
Yeah, I really enjoyed working with the staff. Like for me, I also met another Laguna person out there who was on her chef staff. Working with everybody and feeling that community and understanding like stuff that has to get done, but also having that little camaraderie and being able to share a laugh or two with everyone. But no, and that's another point I wanted to also make out too of repatriation is that Chef Crystal, she has a good amount of female chefs and staff that work for her, even her daughters as well. So that's just like really cool to see that they're taking on those roles and asserting that, and also showing that how they operate as a whole unit to the world, because they have people that come from all over the world, all over the country that come, and that's one of the first stops that it's like off the train metro there, and it's right there. It's like Wahpepah's kitchen. So I'm really proud of the staff there. They really show a great amount of dedication to their craft, and they understand the whole cultural context. They're not only in the kitchen, but they're also volunteering at the gardens to help propagate those heirloom seeds. So it's all a full process, and she really wants people that align with those core values to be on her staff because they know how much love and attention that goes into the food.
Yeah, amazing. I'm really inspired by this conversation. Thank you for taking the time to have it with me. Is there anything else you want to plug before we're all done here? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Adobe, but it's ADOB3. So it's Adobe with a 3.
Gotcha.
You can also find me on TikTok, Geoff Kie. JeoffKieProductions.com is also where you can find me, because I'm also a filmmaker. And also I want to give a shout out to ATM. This is my first kitchen manager ever at Beaver Street Brewery. He's not with us anymore, but he's a really big inspiration in my life, and I hang this up when I'm like serving pizzas, and so he reminds me to just take it to that next level. If you're feeling tired, bust through, or if you're at the end of that shift, give it that last little sweep and call it done. Putting away all your stuff, making sure your mental's right. So I really give a huge shout out to my first kitchen manager, Anthony. So he's a really big inspiration in my life, and I wouldn't be here without him right here in the spot. So I just want to thanks BJ for your time. Thanks for helping out with this whole interview process. Had a blast.
Chef Geoff, enjoy your time in Chicago. Maybe we can go get a pie together while we're here.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Oh yeah, man. Let's enjoy the event.
All right, cool.
Cheers.